Okay, Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. Welcome everyone. We're continuing in Meseches Nedarim, Daf Hashavua, Daf Zayin Amud Aleph. Actually, Zayin Amud Aleph is, there's some very nice Lamdasha pockets. The Gemara had a Shaila, Yesh Yad Lepeya or Ein Yad Lepeya. What's the Shaila? The Shaila is, Rav Papa's Shaila was, that do we say that since Peah is compared to Karbanos, so there's a din of Yad by Karbanos, so there's a din of Yad for Peah? Or maybe it's only Iskash Legabe Baal Ta'achar. So the Ran is bothered. What do you mean it's only Iskash Legabe Baal Ta'achar? Rule number one of Hekish is Ein Hekish L'Mechza. A Hekish is a Hekish for everything. So the Ran says that Peah is never stated explicitly. So even when it's compared to Karbanos, it never says Peah explicitly. So therefore, maybe the Hekish is only a partial Hekish. So Gemara asks, Vehecha Iskash, where exactly is Peah compared to Karbanos? The Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, it's a pasuk in Devarim, Perek Chav Gimel, pasuk Chav Beis. It says, Ki sidar neder l'Hashem leikecha, le'isa'acher l'shamai, ki darosh yidrishenu Hashem leikecha, me'imach. Now if you remember, we darshan from ki darosh yidrishenu. Who remembers? We darshan from Kidarsh Yidrishenu is Chatois V'Ashamois. So that's talking about Karbanos. And then Me'imach is that Leket Sheklo Peah. So there's a Hekish between Karbanos and Peah. Or do we say, well, it doesn't say Peah explicitly, so maybe the Hekish is only a partial Hekish. Now the Gemara has a Shaila. Yesh Yad L'Tzdaka, Ein Yad L'Tzdaka. Is there a yad for tzedakah or not? So it's interesting to me. Why doesn't the Gemara have a girsa by Rav Papa? The Gemara just says yesh yad l'tzedakah or not. In the Hagos V'Tziyunim he says the Piskei Arash has a girsa by Rava. Rava has a shaila, not Rav Papa. Rava. The Ramban and the Ritva and Mukhe Yosef have the Girsa Boira Papa. Yesh Yad L'Tzdaka or Yein Yad L'Tzdaka. Now, really the $1 million question is, what do you mean Yesh Yad L'Tzdaka? If somebody says in their mind, I am going to give $1 million to Yeshiva, Rabbeinu, Minchas, Pinchas, they have to do it. So why do you need Yad? So there are no Yadais. You committed in your mind to give the Tzedakah. Okay? Now in yeshiva, maybe we'll have this in the answer. The question is, what level of commitment is a commitment? Like everybody has a fleeting thought, oh, I wish I gave $1 million to, now you're do you have to, if I'm not mistaken, the Rosh Yeshiva had an idea, you have to say the words in your mind. I am, in your mind, you have to be maharher, I am going, not like the idea, not like the idea was in your mind. So no, but tzedakah is like karbanos. In other words, you're liable to keep the decision of your mind. So why do we care if there are yados for tzedakah or not? I believe that's a famous kasha, the Karen Oira. Maybe we'll do that in the Eon Share. And one of the answers is, you're right, if you commit to do something in your mind, you're committed to it. But once you choose to say it, so now you're choosing the D-board track, and the D-board track will only work if you're expressing it, and the expression is only valid if there's a concept of yados. So yesh yad l'tzdaka, ein yad l'tzdaka. Hey chidam, what's the case? If it's where you say this zuz goes to tzedakah v'hadin nami, and this also hahut tzedakah atzmahi, that is, in essence, saying this will be for tzedakah. Ela kugain de amar, but rather, for example, where you said hadin this. V'loy amar nami, and you didn't say also. Mai, what? Hadin nami tzedakah kamar? This also should be for tzedakah? Oidilma mai v'hadin. What does it mean v'hadin? Lenafkus of alma. This should be for tzedakah, and that should be for my personal expenses. V'dibur hu delayaske, and he just did not complete his words. Mi amrina, do we say kivan de iskash lekarbanos? Since tzedakah is compared to karbanos. Where is tzedakah compared to karbanos? Well, in the same inyan in Devarim, Perek Chav Gimel, Pasuk Chav Daled, Moitza sefasecha tishmar ve'asisa, ka'asher nadarta l'Hashem leikecha nedava asher dibarta beficha. So beficha is tzedakah. So tzedakah is mentioned in the same context as karbanos. Kivan de iskish le karbanos tichsiv beficha zu tzedakah ma karbanos yesh lahem yad. Just like karbanos have a yad, have stuck yesh la yad. Oidilma, or maybe lebal ta'achar hu de iskish. Tzedakah is only compared to karbanos legabe bal ta'achar. Let's take a look at the Ran. The Ran begins on Daf Vav Amud Beis. Oidilma ki mai v'hadein lenafkus v'alma kamar. Ta'afa gav the yad moichiach hava. Even though the yad by tzedakah is the yad moichiach. V'chi ka'amar v'hadein l'tzedakah ka'amar. And when you say v'hadein, in all probability, you mean for tzedakah, dilma ein yad klal. Maybe the whole concept of yados does not apply for tzedakah. Va'afilu moichiach, even if it's a yad moichiach. Oidilma, or maybe ki iskash lebal ta'achar hu de iskash. It's only compared for bal ta'achar. V'lo yamrina, and we don't say ein hekesh l'mechza. We don't say there's no hekesh partially. Did tzedakah nami lo ksiva b'hedya. Just like peah, tzedakah also doesn't say explicitly. Umidrasha asya, it's learned out of a drasha. Okay. Now, next case. Yesh yad lehefker. Is there other yados for hefker? Oidilma ein yad lehefker. So Gemara says, what's the shaila? Hainu tzedakah. That's tzedakah. Im timtza loymar kamar. What we mean to say is, if you're going to take one side by tzedakah, we'll have a shaila. Im timtza loymar yesh yad l'tzedakah. If you're going to say there are yados for tzedakah, de ein hekesh l'mechza, because we're not going to make a hekesh halfway. Hefker. Mi amrina, do we say hainu tzedakah? That's tzedakah. Idilma, or maybe shani tzedakah. Tzedakah is different. It's tzedakah lo'havya elel aniyim. Tzedakah is only for the poor. Aval hefker is bein la'aniyim, bein la'ashirim. Says the Ran, im tim tzloimer yesh yad l'tzedakah. Mishum dekiva de iskash. If you're going to take the tzad that there's yados for tzedakah, because since it's iskash lekarbanos afagav like siva behedya, even though it doesn't say tzedakah explicitly, ein hekesh l'mechza. What about hefker? Hefker mai mi amrina and hainu tzedakah oilai v'ha. Says the Ran, what about shavuos? Why don't we have a shaila whether yesh yad l'shavuos or not? The answer is there's no shaila. It's pasha ein yad. It's pasha yesh yad l'shavuos, because Shavua is explicitly compared to Nedarim, and since yesh yad l'Nedarim, definitely yesh yad l'shvuos. Says around v'haydolay mesafkalan yesh yad l'shvua eloi mishum debehedya iskash. Shvuos are explicitly compared ki yidar neder or hishava shvua. B'haynu d'tanan. This is what it means later on Daf Tes. Kinidrei rishaim nadar benazir bekarban uveshvua alma yesh yad l'shvua. One final question by Ravina. Now, by the way, this imtim tzalaima is very telling, because we know the shita of the Rambam is that whenever you have multiple shailas in the Gemara, that the Gemara ends off teku, which the Gemara here is going to end off tiboile. Tiboile is basically the same thing as teku, Tosfos says. So the Rambam, his approach is that, safek d'oraisa l'chumra. However, if a second shaila is imtim tzaloimer, you take the following tzad of the first shaila, the Rambam will always paskin like the imtim tzaloimer. So the way the Rambam will look like the sugya is, since we say imtim tzaloimer yesh yad l'tzedakah, the Rambam therefore paskins yesh yad l'tzedakah. Now the question is, what is going to be about yesh yad l'peah? Well, peah might be d'oraisa, so, or do we say no? It's a money, and hamotzimei chaver of haraya. So there's a very interesting Ran here about what the halacha is l'maisa. But first, let's see the Beis HaKisei case. Boy Ravina had the following shaila. Yesh yad lebeis hakisei oilai. We know the halacha is that you're not to say dvarim shebekdusha on a beis hakisei. But in order for something to be a beis hakisei, it has to be a bathroom. What if it's only designated as a bathroom? Is that considered a creation of a bathroom? Yesh yad lebeis hakisei oilai. Hey chidami, what's the case? Ilema, if you're going to say the case is the amar hadein beisa lahava beis hakisei. Let's say you say this house should be a bathroom. V'hadin nami, and this one also. Hahi beis hakisei nami hava. Then that's saying this one should also be a beis hakisei. Like we've said throughout the Gemara, when you said v'hadin nami, that means you don't need yados. That's what you're saying. Ela kagoin da amar v'hadin. You just say and this v'lay amar nami. Mai, what do you mean? Hadin mai hadin da amar. What is the hadin that you say? V'hadin nami basically. Say this one should also be a bathroom. Dilma mai v'hadin letashmisha ba'alma kamar. You say this should be a bathroom and this should be the laundry room. This should be a usage room. Now, the Gemara says, wait a second. If we have a shaila whether they're yados for a beis hakisei, that means if you're mazmin a bathroom, it would have to be a bathroom. The only question is your statement a designation? But that means it presupposes that if you designate a bathroom, it will have the status of a bathroom. Says Gemara, Meklal de pshita leila Ravina. From here, it's we can infer that Ravina holds the yesh zimun lebeis hakisei. There is designation for a bathroom, but how could that be? V'hami bay leila Ravina. Ravina had a question about his mina lebeis hakisei. If you designate something for a bathroom, mahu, what's the din? His mina lebeis hamerchatz mahu. If you designate something for a bathhouse, what's the din? Ravina was not sure about that. Zimun mayal or ayin zimun mayal? Does designation help or not? So how could Ravina have a shaila whether yados work by a bathroom, but Ravina had a question whether even designation works to begin with? So the Gemara says, Ravina chada migu chada kamibayi. Ravina had a question, one in another. Migu chada, within another. Meaning, within the tzad that yesh zimun, we have a question, are there yados or not? Zimun mayal ayin zimun mayal. Does designation help? Im timtzolaima yesh zimun, then yesh yadoy ein yad tiboy. Yesh zimun, then yesh yadoy ein yad. Are there yados or not? And the Gemara concludes tiboyle. Tosa says perish kamay teku. It means tiboyle is teku. Why doesn't the Gemara say teku? Tosa says a very interesting principle. Lashoin Nedarim Meshuneh. The language of Masechta Nedarim is different than any other Masechta. Maybe because, like we learned in the intro to Nedarim, it's from the Shar Nun, so they use different terminology over here. But I don't know why, but it's different. Okay, now we're going to do, even though this is not a registered Ran, this Ran, we don't have to do this Ran. But I want to tell you Chiddush. Even though we don't have to do this Ran, we're still going to do the Ran. Okay? Just pointing that out. This Ran is how we paskin. It's Geshmak Ran. It's on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th line from the top. Ula inyan halacha. All these shilas, yesh yad lekedushin, yesh yad lepeya, yesh yad letzdaka, yesh yad lehefker, yesh yad lebeis hakisei. How do we paskin about all these things? The Gemara concluded teku. What's the halach lemaisa? So legabe kedushin neketina lechumra the yesh yad the kivan de boiloi of shita. Since it's a question that has not been given a decisive answer, havalas sveika dairaisa and lechumra. Fine, that's simple enough. What about uvepeya v'tztaka, kasav harajba, peya and staka nami azlin l'chumra? Why? Kivan desalku b'teku. We ended off with a teku. V'chein kasav ramban b'hil chaysav. The bayin d'tztaka loy ifshita behedya. The shaila of tztaka has not been deciphered. V'sugyun diyesh yad l'tztaka. And the sugya holds yesh yad l'tzedakah. V'kaimala nami dechol teiku di isur l'chumra. And we hold that whenever there's a teiku of isur, we go l'chumra. What does the Ramban mean? Sugya yesh yad. Umayda amar zal the sugya yesh yad l'tzedakah hainu mishum de kamrinon. It's because the Gemara says im tim saloyma yesh yad l'tzedakah. V'zeh efshar hu al derech Rambam. This is possibly in the vein of the Rambam, shapoisik b'chol makom, like the imtim soleimer. But here's the $1 million question. What does the Ramban mean? We paskin every teku of Isser is l'chumra. The Rashba also holds that way. Would you say Peah and Tzedakah is teku de Isura? Isn't it teku de Mamayna? Do I have to give Tzedakah? Do I have to give the Ani Peah? Do I have to give this person hefker? That's not Isser. That's Mamain. Why can't I say Hamoitzi mechaver of Haraya? And the Ramban brings a raya from Safek Matnais Aniyim, where the Gemara says that's not Safek Isser, that's Safek Mamain, and we say Hamoitzi mechaver of Haraya. And the Ran brings many other rayas. For example, on the third wide line, where the Gemara talks about a baker taking off Meiser Risha Meiser Ani, and the Gemara applies over there, Hamotzmech Raya. And the Gemara assumes, therefore, that when you're not sure if you have to give Matnais Aniyim or Matnas Leviim, that's Sfeika de Mamaina, we say Hamotzmech Raya, that's not Sfeika de Isura. Therefore, the Ran's conclusion is, Elavade, I'm on the 6th line, wide line, Elavade Sfeika de Mamain Aniyim Loi Mikri Sfeika de Isura, Ela Sfeika de Mamaina, Ulakula, Ulafikach Aniyim Eschaver B'Devrem. I argue on the Ramban and the Rashba. Safek Tzedakah, Safek Hefker, Safek Peah, you don't have to give it. And by Hefker, that's for sure Sfeika Domaina. And Beis Hakisei is only Midrabanan, so Safek Draban Lakula. Okay? So basically, by Kedushin, everyone says Safek Daraisa L'chumra. By Hefker and Beis Hakisei, everyone says Safek Drabanan Lakula. By Peah and Tzedakah, the Ramban and the Rashba say that Safek Isura and therefore L'chumra, and the Ran says it's Safek Mamoina and L'kula. Maybe that will be something we discuss in the Eon Share. Right? How do you define Safek Tzedakah? Is it Safek Isur and you have to give it? Or is it Safek Mamoin and you say burden of proof is on the recipient? Let's do a little further. The Mishnah says that if you say, let's go back to the Mishnah. The Heilige Mishnah said that Madrani mimcha, mefreshani mimcha, merchukani mimcha, shani oichalach, shani toimlach. Rabbi Kiva was choichech lahachmer. He was machmer. Says Gemara, menu da'anilach, Amar Abaye, moida Rabbi Akiva le'inyan malchus. Rabbi Kiva would agree that for lashes, she'enei loika, you don't get malchus. Just because Rabbi Kiva was choichech lahachmer, he was machmer as a chumrah, but not to give lashes. De'im kain, otherwise, if he held that you get lashes, Nisni should have taught Rabbi Kiva machmer. So rather, Rabbi Kiva is not machmer, but rather, Amra Papa binadina minach de kolyam lepligid de aser. If you say nadina minach, which is definitely a lashon of neder, that would for sure be aser. Mishamtana minach, if you say a lashon of shamta, then I'm putting you in cherem l'kolyam ashari. When do they argue? But my pligi b'menuda anilach. Rabbi Kiva says it's a lashon of neder, and the Rabbanan say it's a lashon of shamta. Says the Ran, menuda anilach Rabbi Kiva choichech b'zal hachmer. Choichech is ka'adam shu mesupik b'davar. It's like a guy who is in doubt. U'meschachech ba'atzmai, and he's like scratching. Mibnei she'eni yochel avarai. He can't come to a definitive conclusion. So choichech is like he's scratching, like he's not sure. Inami melashon chech, a lashon of palate. Kolomer shahiyah matim lechikai lahachmer. He's like tasting his palate to be machmer. But Rabbi Akiva's moida le'inyan malchus, so you don't get malchus. To hamasafkale, he's mesupik shahaya machmer. He's mesupik because he was machmer. V'lo shahaya davar baralai. It was not clear. Umiu shaminan. From here we learn that you could get that Yadois could be mechayiv you malchus. The Yadois nami lamalchus is Rabbi. That the chiddush of Yadois would work even legabe malchus. The Eloi my moida Rabbi Kiva pshita. What does it mean? Rabbi Kiva would be moida. He's moida that le'inyan malchus you don't get malchus. Of course not. You can't be chayiv malchus through Yadois. It must be you could be chayiv through Yadois. Just Rabbi Kiva is not sure. Nadina minach de kuliyama aser kulaymar aser veloike. Nadina minach is for sure malchus. But again, that's miodavka b'da amar shani oichalach. If you finish shani oichalach, like Shmuel said earlier on Daf Hashavua Beis, by mafreshani merchukani ad shiyomer shani oichalach. So nadina nami de chavasayo shuloshen harchaka. You have to be able to say Shani Yoichalach. Mishamtina minach du kol yamashari. If you say mishamtina, everyone says it's mutter. Dafilu amar shani oichalach. Even if you finish off shani oichalach, isur namilaka. There would be no isur, because Mishamtina minach is ein zel lashon neder. That's not a lashon of a neder, ela lashon shamta. It's a lashon of excommunication, and an excommunication is not going to answer the food. V'hainu nami diba uvda dahu gavra, and that this is similarly found in the story we'll see on Amud Beis about a guy. The amar mishamtina minichsi I am in cherem from my nechasim amrinan upligid Rab Chizda. That this halacha, that it doesn't create any isser, argues on Rav Chisda. Afagav de minichsi have a meichiach ki ilu amar sha'ani oichalach. When do they argue? B'menuda anilach kolaymar v'amar nami sha'ani oichalach. So again, if you say nadina, that's definitely lashon neder. If you say mishamtina, that's definitely not a lashon neder. What about menuda? V'amar menuda anila menuda shani oichalach. V'amar nami shani oichalach. The high lishna the menuda mashma hachi. It's mashma both neder and shamta. Rabbi Kiva Sara lishna de neduyahu. Kalaymer sha'afhu lashon richak v'hevda. Rabbi Kiva presumes it's a lashon of distancing yourself, like mefrushani, merchukani, kidemetargaminan v'hadava benidasa v'sayavasa berchuke hilkach aser. But the Rabbanan hold it's lashon b'nei adam, just to say menuda on nidoi. So they argue about menuda. Rabbi Kiva says it's a lashon of neduya, a lashon of neder, and the Chachamim say it's a lashon of shamta. But they argue only in this case. They don't argue about niduya, nedina. That's definitely neder, and they don't argue about mishamtana. That's definitely not neder. Okay, we'll pick it up tomorrow. Tomorrow, hopefully, B'ez Hashem, same time, 9:15. Okay, see everybody tomorrow. Hatzlacha Rabbah. Okay, Kol Tov. Good night, good night.